So what we're going to cover today, and there's a couple of things where a lot of people tend to think of recruitment as being everything up to and including the offer letter. What I see recruitment as, and there's lots of different schools of thought, but for me recruitment is those early stages. So it's before we even get to the interview stage. Interview really is, we're now looking at selection. So we do need to know why we're going to hire, and I'm going to skip to the first slide here. So why are we hiring? We could be hiring for a new position. We could be hiring to fill an existing vacancy. Now, if it is a vacancy due to an exit, one of the key things that we need to look at is, why did the person leave? It's not always apparent. And we all know that people don't like to burn bridges. They'll come up with a wide range of reasons as to why this is not the position for them at this point in time. Hoping that you're still going to be a reference, and if things don't work out, they could always come back, or they just don't want to upset you, or they're just terrified to say. A lot of people don't like being honest, unfortunately. So if you can discover as much information as possible as to why the person is leaving, you just may stop yourself getting back onto that hamster wheel of turnover. And I know that when we need to hire somebody, typically it's a panic. Oh my goodness, they've given us a week, 2 weeks notice. By the time I advertise and by the time I get all the sign-offs and I post, I'm going to be vacant for a month or two before I even get a body in here. So there's that inclination to want to just go, go, go. But I'd encourage you to take a step back and say, okay, why is this person leaving? Is there an underlying reason? So the next kind of topic, or the next kind of piece, is the job description. So a lot of organizations don't have job descriptions, and that can make hiring incredibly difficult. One of the key reasons why job descriptions are important is it is a legally defensible document. So if you were ultimately to hold somebody accountable from a performance perspective for not doing particular tasks or certain tasks, certain functions, if the information is included in the job description, and if it's clear that the individual was aware of the job description, had a copy of the job description, it is something that you're able to use as an additional tool to support your case that no, this particular role, these particular functions, they are applicable to this position, and the individual knew that they should be doing that. I can never stress the importance of documentation enough. Documentation from an HR perspective, quite honestly, sometimes is a real pain. It's one of those things where we don't necessarily have the time, but something simple like a job description is a beautiful piece of documentation that we keep in our toolbox that really does help. The next kind of tip is around advertising. Advertising is one of those things where you kind of grit your teeth and go, okay, 400 resumes, here we come. So really what we're looking at, there's a mix of free and paid sites available to us, and there's going to be different, quite honestly, different caliber and a different, I'm going to say a different demographic, and we use the word demographic loosely, but it's going to be a different demographic that's going to put themselves in these different places. So as an example, we're not going to see a position on the job bank. We're not going to see a labourer at the College of Physicians putting their resume in there. So really, a lot of the time what we need to look at is, what is it that we're looking for? What are some of the skills? What are the actual requirements that we need for this position? And which of these options is going to give us the best possible opportunity? When you're hiring for a position, put yourself in the mind of that, I'm going to call them your ideal candidate. So you're looking for a frontline receptionist. So I'm a frontline receptionist. Where am I going to put my resume? Where am I going to advertise myself as being available? Where are you going to find me? Now, if you're looking, I'm going to say anybody 30 under, 30 years old and under. A couple of the other places that you might want to think of, and call me crazy, but it works. Facebook. Yeah, Gigi. I have to say that the functionality behind Facebook for advertising is great. what you can do demographically is just amazing. It's insane how you can really nail down to a specific type of individual and specific interests, quite frankly, through something like Facebook. So, really think about where you as a candidate would post your resume. An amazing tool, I've seen it work really well. I've seen some badly designed ones, but I've seen some really well-designed employee referral programs. It is a taxable benefit, but you can incent employees for referring new employees to you. You need to put guidelines and rules around that. I got a few samples that I'm happy to share. But basically, it's a bounty. So if you send as a candidate, they make it through probation, they meet certain criteria, you will receive X dollars. That ties in very closely to the next point. Attracting candidates is a 365-day-a-year process. Your website, to me, reflects the company's culture. As a candidate, that tells me a lot about the organization. So even if I'm just kind of passively looking, or if you have another position that I see you're posting and I flick onto your website, again, it's a company that would interest me. All of the sort of topics that we've covered today, we've touched on them very, very briefly. We do have a lot more material in terms of going into each of these in far more depth. And really from a recruitment perspective, this is just the very early stages of recruitment. This really gets you to the point where the resumes are starting to come in. Moving on from here is that whole selection process. So how do you screen through 400 resumes and not miss that absolute superstar? Or you just take a chance that you miss them. And then how do you work through that interview and process and so on to actually get them on board? So there's lots more information that we can